Welcome to State of Mind, Being Human and Living Well, broadcasting on KSQD Santa Cruz on 90.7 FM and live streaming at ksqd.org. I'm the producer, Deborah Sloss, licensed marriage and family therapist, and my pronouns are she, her. Starting with the Stonewall Uprising in June 1969, Pride Month both commemorates and celebrates LGBTQ+ activism and culture through the years. So in honor of Pride Month 2021, today's show is about LGBTQ+ teens and youth. This acronym stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, plus other gender and sexual identities including, but not limited to, asexual, transsexual, questioning, pansexual, agender, genderqueer, and ally. Today, we'll be exploring the impact the pandemic is having on the mental health of this community. As is the case with some of the other social justice mental health topics we've covered, we like to invite guest hosts who are members of those communities themselves to come and conduct these interviews. In this way, we turn over the microphone in order to give the power of voice to those communities who are too often marginalized. For today's show, we're excited to welcome back former State of Mind guest Adam Lanfear, who was on episode 29 about intimacy in the pandemic for young adults. Today, Adam will be your host in conversation with our other guests about LGBTQ+ teens in the pandemic. We're recording from remote locations and had some unexpected challenges as a result, so we ask that you forgive some of the sound quality issues in today's show. We hope the content here is so valuable that it makes up for it. Our guest host, Adam Lanfear, pronouns he, him, is originally from Buffalo, New York, and moved to Santa Cruz 5 years ago to attend school at the University of California, Santa Cruz. After moving across the country and finding his place in California, he felt more comfortable expressing and experimenting with his sexual identity, and now proudly identifies as a gay man. In his free time, Adam enjoys hiking, reading, doing yoga, and road tripping. He believes that everyone he meets has so much to teach him, and as an activist, he works with queer folk to make them feel heard, appreciated, and included. Here's your host today, Adam Lanfear.
Thank you, Deborah. Thanks for having me on the show today. I'm super excited to be here talking with our three guests to kick off Pride Month. Before we begin, I just feel the need to say that I'm not an expert in gender politics, and I'm not an expert in queer studies, and I'm just here today hosting the show as a proud gay man with a lot to learn from all of you. And it's been a long journey for me finding my voice and now being able to come onto public radio and talk about things like these. And I recognize that the experience and the obstacles that I've faced may be completely different from the challenges that the queer youth and you guys are facing today, especially given the prevalence of things such as smartphones and social media. And with that being said, our brave guests are here today to tell us directly about their experiences, finding their voices as young queer people and the struggles that they have faced, that they're still facing, and how they've persevered. We'll also be touching on how COVID has potentially changed the experience of queer youth. So as we listen along to them, I encourage you to keep an open mind and an open heart, and remember that there's just so much to learn in listening to the stories of marginalized individuals. Now I'm very honored to introduce our three guests today. First up, we have Ron Indra. Excuse me. His pronouns are he, him. Ron is currently the director of the Safe Schools Project. He's lived in Santa Cruz County for 40 years and taught at Harbor High School for 34 years. He founded the first GSA, which is the Gay Straight Alliance Club, called Rainbow Society 17 years ago at Harbor High, and has been working to support LGBTQ+ students across Santa Cruz County ever since. His work now includes teaching, consulting, advising, and curriculum development. Mr. Indra has seriously received so many awards and recognitions that the list is way too long to say here, but all of them have been for his dedicated work supporting students and helping create more inclusive and safe school communities. Next up, we have Marie Harrison, and her pronouns are she, her. And Marie is the Vice President of SoCal High School's QSA and a member of the Queer and Trans Youth Council of Santa Cruz County. Marie moved to Santa Cruz from out of state last year and has since become a strong advocate for queer youth, especially those in crisis. As QSA Vice President, Marie has helped grow the membership of the club. She handles paperwork and finances and is a strong advocate for the asexual community. As part of the QTYC, Marie has worked to help create a website for closeted LGBTQIA+ youth that gives resources to those in need of help without potentially outing themselves in their online history. And finally, we have Q Licht, and Q is a sophomore at Scotts Valley High School who was born and raised in Santa Cruz County. He is a transgender male whose pronouns are he, him, and his. Q is the student media lead for Scotts Valley High School's Sexuality and Gender Acceptance Saga Club, the creator of the Purple Sticker Project, and a nominee for the 2021 Santa Cruz County Queer Youth Leadership Awards. The Purple Sticker Project's mission is to make media with positive LGBTQ+ representation more accessible to students. He loves cats, chocolate, reading, and playing Dungeons and Dragons. So welcome Ron, Marie, and Q. Thanks for being here today. I thought we'd start off with some questions for Ron. I was hoping we could start by talking about why you think it's important to be talking about LGBTQ+ teens' mental health, and especially at this point in time as we're over a year into the coronavirus pandemic.
Well, thank you for having me. So it actually is most important to talk about this right now because we have been going on for over a year now with remote learning or some version thereof. And that means that our students are isolated. They're isolated at home and they're not meeting up with their friends and their supportive peers. They're not meeting up with their teachers, who are often very supportive. Many students come out to one of their teachers as one of the first people they come out to. And we know that students often say that school is the only safe place that they have. So not having that access to school has been really, really traumatic for our students. And because of that, we're seeing a huge jump in attempted suicide, unfortunately, some suicides, self-harm. A number of students have had to undergo a 5150. We see a rise in depression, anxiety, isolation, withdrawal, alcohol use, drug use, and homelessness. So as this goes on, these figures only tend to rise and cause us deep, deep concern.
And I just graduated from college a year ago, and it's been a long time since I've been in high school. And I've wondered if you've seen any changes in the past, 8 to 10 years regarding bullying or just the struggles that youth face, especially queer youth in high school.
Yes. So lots of changes since since you've left school. So one of the things we're seeing is that youth are coming out earlier. They're coming out younger. So the good part of that, the pro, is that we're able to support those students, to get them the resources that they need, to let them be who they are at earlier and earlier ages, which is super important for that child. The downside, the con side, is that it really freaks out adults. As kids come out earlier and earlier, adults they don't know what they're talking about, they don't understand, etc., which is not true. But there's more pushback from the adult community as our students come out earlier. Students are more informed now because of the internet and access to the internet. So the exciting thing is that students are able to talk to other LGBTQ+ students, realizing they're not the only ones out there, that there's lots of youth just like them. The downside is whenever you deal with the internet, students get misinformation. And then we're always worried about predators who are online constantly searching for youth that are out there looking for information, for friendship, for connection. Also, the LGBT plus students now see themselves in the media much more than they ever have before. TV shows, news reports, special reports. So again, they realize that, wow, there's lots of people out there like me. I'm not the only one. So that's reassuring for a youth. It's that isolation that we worry about most of all. And then most high schools in Santa Cruz County and middle schools in Santa Cruz County now have GSAs or sagas. So these are organizations where youth can, I had a GSA, we met every Wednesday at lunch. We did fun activities. We did things out on campus. We went to movies. So fun things, healthy things for youth to do. And GSAs are super critical for our LGBT youth in our schools. And then the other big change is the number of California laws that are now out there to protect our LGBT youth. So there's a law that says youth must learn LGBT history in middle and high school. We must have comprehensive sex ed, including LGBTQ plus students. They must see themselves in the curriculum. And then California has done a lot of work to secure the rights to protect our LGBT youth in schools and to make our schools safer. So those are huge changes since you and I were in school.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are huge improvements, having representation, having places to gather in. And I was wondering, do you have gay straight alliances moving to the digital world now that COVID has taken over?
Most of our GSAs and youth LGBT youth groups are online now. Unfortunately, another Zoom meeting for them, but they are able to connect. And then we have other organizations that are also offer online meeting places. The Diversity Center is one of them, so youth can meet up and talk and share and connect.
Okay, that's awesome. And going off of having these safe meeting spaces digitally for youth, especially right now, um, and including gay straight alliances, who do you think are the important players in the lives of teens, and who's making impacts on their mental health, and who can they go to for help and for support?
Wow. So number one, our biggest wish is parents. Um, Parents that are supportive, parents that are informed and understand their kids, their youth. Any household that has supportive parents, that's a huge step for our LGBTQ plus youth. And I work a lot with parents to help them with that. Often I'll get the call from the parent saying, my kid just came out to me, what do I do? And so to walk them through, to help them, this is how you're supportive. Most parents, want to be supportive. They want their kids to do well. They don't know, have the tools. And so they ask for that help. And then probably next in line is teachers. Teachers are so important. I know particularly in my life, but teachers that make their classrooms inclusive, that make them safe places for students to come. I used to have kids come to my classroom before school, after school, lunch break. They didn't feel safe generally out in school, but my classroom was a place where they could all congregate and meet and talk and have fun. So it's making that your classroom safe. And often the student will come to you and come out for the first time to someone because they do feel safe, and then you can help them get the resources, the information, the connections that they do need. Counselors are super important, both school counselors and therapists, and we want them both to be informed and supportive. And that seems kind of obvious, but that's not always the case. So when we work with youth, we make sure we find them therapists that first off are knowledgeable and have access to resources, information, and then can help them and support them through their journey, as well as school counselors. And then Santa Cruz is really lucky because we have a number of organizations that support our LGBT youth. Diversity Center, big one out there, has multiple youth groups running every week. The Safe Schools Project, I do a lot of training for parents and staff who want to know more about how they can be more supportive, as well as intervening individually when a student's rights or safety is not being protected at school. I go in there and work with the staff and to make sure that it is a supportive space and that the laws are being followed for that student. And then the Queer Youth Task Force is an organization in town that puts on queer graduations, summits for our youth. The big event coming up is Quila, which is a big award ceremony for the best of our best. We have some here today, best of our best students who are LGBT and out there doing wonderful things for the youth, our LGBT youth in the community. Because the biggest danger of all is that, as I said before, is that isolation. When that student has closed themselves off from everyone, doesn't feel like anyone understands, that's where the problems arise. And so we're always constantly trying to reach out to our youth to come to some of the many organizations and groups in the county so they can interact with their peers. Very important.
You're tuned to listener-supported 90.7 FM KSQD Santa Cruz, K-Squid, many voices, one station. And this is State of Mind, being human and living well. I'm your guest host today, Adam Lanfear, and I'm here talking with Safe Schools Director Ron Intra. Also with us is activist and SoCal High School student Marie Harrison and activist Scotts Valley High School student Q Licht. Stay with us to learn more about LGBTQ+ teens in the pandemic, the impacts on them, and where and how to get support. We'll be right back after this brief message from our underwriter.
KSQD thanks Family Service Agency of the Central Coast for supporting this program. Family Service Agency provides counseling and support for people of all ages facing life crises and challenges. You can reach them at 423-9444 to see if they can help you. Thank you, Family Service Agency of the Central Coast, for supporting KSQD 90.7 FM.
Let's get back to the interview. We're going to start with some questions for Marie. And I was hoping you could start off with sharing your journey becoming a part of the LGBTQ+ community.
Yeah, I grew up in a pretty sheltered and uneducated environment. We didn't learn much about the queer community until I was about 13 years old. And I only discovered the term asexuality when I was about 14, so a year later. And it's taken me a long time to figure out what my identity has, meant for me and how it affects my relationship with the people around me.
Okay, so you identify as asexual, and just for the listeners at home and for people who don't know, I was hoping you could describe that or define it and what it means to you, and maybe 3 of the most important things you want somebody to know about that orientation.
Yeah, so asexuality is simply described as the lack of sexual attraction. It's different for everybody and it affects people differently. But it simply means that we don't find people sexually attractive. 3 of the most important things I think there are to know, we don't often under the innocent, prudish stereotype. We're not all completely oblivious to sex and, sexual relations and that kind of thing. We're people just like everyone else, and we all have various understandings and interactions with the world, just and it's a lot difficult to come to terms with asexuality because it's hard to define the lack of something, sense of something.
Are asexual people ever in romantic relationships, maybe without physical intimacy, or is it a lack of physical and the desire to partner up with somebody?
So there are some asexuals who don't have romantic attraction, but there are plenty of asexuals who are in romantic relationships and who even have physical relationships with their partner for various reasons, such as liking the act of sex itself or doing it to feel close to their partner because they know that it's something their partner treasures and needs for, intimacy.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Why has identifying as queer been important to you?
Um, Before I learned about the queer community and learned that I was part of the community, I felt that there was something wrong with me because I didn't have the same experiences as, the people my age discovering their crushes and, that type of thing. Um, and it really affected how I saw myself. It made me feel awful about myself, not knowing that that was out there for me. Um, and now being queer has given me a community of, support and helped greatly bolster my self-confidence and my self-worth.
That's awesome. So the term queer and owning that and being asexual has made you feel safe. And but I was wondering what else has really boosted your mental health and how finding a community makes a huge difference.
Yeah, frankly, moving here to Santa Cruz is a lot. It helped a lot with my mental health. Santa Cruz is just plainly a more accepting place than where I was in Arizona. And, you know, finding a place where I can be accepted is like, it's just good to be able to embrace who I am and be able to stand strong in that without fear of being the only person who accepts me for who I am. And I remember once when I first came to the school, I came to SoCal High, and I was walking the campus and I saw a mural and it had a bunch of flags on a wall, handprints, and one of the handprints was the asexual flag. And that was the first moment like I felt truly welcome in pretty much my entire life, where I could, like embrace who I was in this environment and be accepted for who I was. And it was, that specific moment which led me to joining the QSA.
That is so beautiful. And so for how seeing that asexual flag and the handprint on that mural is important to you, what other things are important to you? And you know, things such as listing pronouns, do those have a similar effect where it makes you feel included, that people are being conscious of these things?
Tying into like the pronouns specifically, I feel like asking someone's pronouns and then using those pronouns is it's a sign of acknowledgement. It's a sign of, I acknowledge and respect your identity, and I respect you as a person. Um, and even though I go by my assigned pronouns at birth, but even someone asking me my pronouns and um, interacting with me in that way shows like I am here to respect you and I find it important to respect you. So and that's really important to know. It's important to know that there are people who are willing to acknowledge and respect you.
You're tuned to listener-supported at 90.7 FM KSQD K-Squid, community radio for the Monterey Bay. And this is State of Mind, being human and living well. We're also live streaming over the web at ksqd.org. You can find the podcasts of all of our shows on Apple and Google Podcasts and on the KSQD website. I'm your guest host today, Adam Lanfear, and I'm here talking with Safe Schools Director Ron Indra. Also with us is activist and SoCal High School student Marie Harrison and activist Scotts Valley High School student Q Licht. We're discussing the impact the pandemic is having on LGBTQ+ teens and hearing what two remarkable teens are doing to make a difference at their schools and to provide more support for their peers across the county. I want to remind listeners that every State of Mind show has a resource list posted along with the show, and the resources we talk about today can be found at ksqd.org/stateofmind. Now, let's get back to our interview. All right, so we're going to kick it off. I'm going to have some questions for you, Q. To start off, I was wondering if you could maybe share your journey about how you came to be a part of the LGBTQ+ community.
Yeah, I use the labels transgender, bi, and pan. And I'm being raised in a very loving and accepting home. My friends are very supportive, and I go to an accepting temple. And so I probably knew from elementary school onward that it was okay to be queer, which has been really important for me. So my personal journey was more about going from the idea of some people are queer to I'm queer, and then later from some people are transgender to I'm transgender.
For the listeners at home, would you mind defining what what your definition of trans is and your identity?
Yeah, so someone who is transgender or trans for short has a gender that does not match the one they were assigned at birth. So some people who are transgender have a gender that's outside of the male female binary, so they're non binary. And me, I'm a binary transgender guy. So I was assigned female at birth and my gender is male. And another word I'm probably going to be using is cisgender or cis for short. And someone who is cisgender has a gender that does match the one they were assigned at birth. So it's just a word for people who aren't transgender.
Okay, so I was born male biologically and identify as a male, so I'm cis man, correct?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. And I was hoping you could identify pansexuality for people at home in case maybe it's the first time they've heard that mentioned.
Yeah, so pan and bi are synonyms, which is why I use both labels. And to kind of give I guess, a base level definition, someone who is bi or pan might be attracted to a girl or a boy or someone who's neither of those.
And so, what was your experience like coming out? You said you have a really accepting family. And was there a difference between how you came out at home or at school? And what did you find helpful or supportive?
Yeah, so I kind of had three different parts of my coming out. In middle school, when I came out as bi, in seventh, eighth grade ish, when I started questioning my gender identity, and then the past year or so, in which I've been coming out as transgender to more people. Um, so when I was in middle school, I realized I was presenting as female, and I realized that I had crushes on girls. And I came out to a handful of my closest friends. And coming out as bi in middle school meant to me that I could talk with my friends about having crushes on both girls and boys. It was never anything serious. It was just the freedom to talk about crushes in the way that my cis het friends did. So sorry, cis het, that's cisgender and heterosexual.
And how did your family take it, if you don't mind opening up about that?
Yeah, my family has always been very supportive. Like any people, we've had learning moments together. There's a lot to learn about the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm really grateful that they've been so supportive.
And you said you go to temple. Is your temple accepting? And
I go to Temple Bethel, and Temple Bethel is known for being one of the very accepting religious organizations in Santa Cruz.
that's awesome. It sounds like you've had a lot of support and encouragement on all sides of you throughout this process of discovering yourself and your voice. Do you have any do you have any challenges or any people that have faced problems for you that you've had to overcome that you maybe want to share about?
Yeah, so I was actually kind of circling back to when I first came out in middle school as bi. It was the parents of the people in my grade who had the worst reaction. Um, I was maybe 12 when I learned that some of the parents of the people in my grade were genuinely concerned that I was going to turn their kids gay and that I was a bad influence. And there's definitely a larger issue there. The myth that being in the LGBTQ plus community somehow makes us inappropriate, and that idea is still surprisingly pervasive. And it really hurts, especially like as someone who's a child myself, the message that it's inappropriate to have the same feelings as my straight and cisgender classmates. So in seventh and eighth grade ish, I started to question my gender identity after someone who is about my age that I distantly knew came out as transgender. And that was the big moment where I really went from like people can be transgender to, oh, I think that's me. I think I'm transgender. Um, and in middle school, I used the label non-binary because that was what I felt kind of fit what I was feeling. And it wasn't until high school that I realized that binary transgender was a more accurate label for me. And I want to make it really clear that um, being non binary is not inherently a phase, it is an identity on its own. And it was my personal experience that I identified as non binary before realizing that I'm a trans guy. So then in the past year or so, I've been in the process of coming out as transgender, and I've been seeing a gender therapist for quite some time now. And a gender therapist is a therapist that specializes in transgender and gender nonconforming clients. It's been a really great experience for me, and I'm really glad to have that as a resource. Um, my most supportive experience coming out has definitely been um, I came out to someone who was really close to me, and at the time I was really doubting myself and my gender, and I asked them for support, just confirmation that what I was going through wasn't being made up somehow, and they just really simply said, "I believe you." And that was really big for me. I think that was definitely what gave me the confidence to tell that person for the first time in my life, I think I'm a guy. And that was the big moment for me. And since then I've been coming out to more and more people, and it's been going really well, and I've been a lot happier presenting as male and going about my day as a guy.
Thank you for sharing that. Maybe you could share some of your ideas that you've had about how schools can create a more accepting atmosphere for LGBTQ plus youth.
Absolutely. So I've got my kind of three big things are improvements in on campus, in the classroom, and in the curriculum. So on campus, um, we should have accessible students, gender neutral bathrooms, anti-harassment policies, all that stuff. In the classroom, um, even online, it can be really important for teachers to have their pronouns in their Zoom name because that tells all the students this is a safe space, I'm a safe teacher. Um, and some schools have started to do pronoun forms that get sent to all the students that are completely anonymous. They let teachers know what's your preferred name, what are your preferred pronouns, and when and where is it okay to use them. And that's kind of the really big one for in the classroom. And then in the curriculum, we definitely still need improvements in health class, history, English, and in the materials that we have in our library. And it's really cool that legislation has been passed over the past couple years to encourage schools to teach more about the LGBTQ plus community, but it's still a really slow moving ship, and there's a lot of progress that we can make there.
Definitely. Ron, I see you nodding your head. Do you have anything to add to this?
I do, and I support those statements because people think, well, there's laws, so obviously everything is being done and everything is hunky dory. But in fact, it's a difference between passing. So what happens is California legislature passes a law. It goes to the Department of Education, who writes ed code. Then it goes to each school district to write their board policy. And all school districts have these policies, but one of the things that I do is make sure that they're actually enforcing them. So whether it's history or inclusive LGBT sex ed, we still have to push school districts to actually follow the intent of the law and make sure that our students are getting what the legislature and California lawmakers have asked to be done. And it's an uphill battle for sure.
Totally. Q, maybe you can share with us, do you have any outlets or do you have any ways of improving your own mental health?
I think the big one for me is playing Dungeons and Dragons, um, which is a tabletop role playing game with dice and characters. And the group of friends that I play Dungeons and Dragons with is really awesome. We have a lot of fun. We started playing a couple months into lockdown, so we've always had our sessions virtually. Um, and the two big things that make my D&D group a really good place, a really like a safe space for being LGBTQ plus, and additionally, a fantastic place for identity exploration. Um, there's a distance between you and the characters that you play. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you're acting as a character, usually in a fantasy setting, and it can be a really good, cool opportunity to try stuff out with your identity with that separation between you and the character. So, for example, a bit before I came out to my D&D group as transgender, I was playing a male character who uses he/him pronouns, and it was a really positive space for me to have um, that kind of place to explore that without the stakes of coming out and saying I want to use he/him pronouns for me. I can just say, oh, my character uses he/him pronouns. Um, and the second big thing about my D&D group is that they're just really wonderful people, and they're very supportive, and it's been clear from the very beginning that our D&D group is a safe space to be openly and loudly LGBTQ plus.
And are you also currently in any GSAs or in clubs right now that you meet with frequently and talk about these things with?
Yeah, so I participate in the Scotts Valley High School SAGA Club, which stands for Sexuality and Gender Acceptance, and I am the student media lead.
So we understand that both Q and M are nominees for the 2021 Queer Youth Leadership Awards, and we're recording this conversation just a few days before those awards are to be announced. And by the time this airs, that event will have already happened. So we want to congratulate you both for your outstanding leadership and recognize that the nomination itself is a statement of the important and good work that you both are doing in our community. So after that being said, I think it's a good time to get into maybe some of the advocacy work that everybody here is doing. I know you're all big advocates in the queer community. And since we were just talking to you, Q, maybe you want to start. You said that you were the student media lead for the Scotts Valley High School Saga, or the Sexuality and Gender Acceptance Club. So maybe you can talk about what it is you're doing there and other advocacy work that you're doing.
Yeah, so with the Saga Club, the primary thing that I'm working on is the Purple Sticker Project. The goal of the Purple Sticker Project is to make books and other media more accessible to students in grades K through 12. And we're accomplishing that by putting purple stickers with the logo, which is a white circle with a purple square in it, on books with LGBTQ plus representation as determined by our criteria. And the logo is kind of more inconspicuous than a pride flag or a rainbow, so that students don't have to worry about the stigma of carrying around a loudly LGBTQ plus book. So it's accessible to closeted students and allied students who want to learn more, as well as openly queer students.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's important to have that representation, and I think that work that's really valuable what you're doing. And maybe we can turn it to Marie. I understand you're an activist too, and you're helping with several projects to support queer youth. Can you maybe talk about your activism and what roles and things you're working on right now?
I'm in a lot of different roles in the community. My main role is I am part of the Queer and Trans Youth Council, which is under the Safe Schools Project and the Queer Youth Task Force. And the project, we create a project that helps the queer community and the queer youth. And this year's project, we decided to create a website that has a fail-safe so that students can get information, specifically closeted students can get information about you know, what it is to be queer and their different identities, and resources to help them with their mental health and things like that, without putting that like on their internet history. So the website is designed um, under a different pretense, so the information is hidden from the search history, and any parent or someone who checks the student's uh, computer won't immediately see that they are looking into things that have to do with being queer.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. And Ron, first of all, let me say I think every school district needs a Ron to be there helping out students. It just seems like you do an incredible job. And so do you want to maybe share on ways you think students could get involved, or why it's important for teachers or parents to create a safe space like you seem so well at doing?
Well, as you heard from our youth, some kids come out very early, they're confident, they're together. That's not the normal case. And some kids come out later. College is usually when most young people come out. But as people come out earlier, the more help and support they have, as we see from home and from school, the more they're able to discover themselves and discover themselves in a positive way. And that avoids the problems that we see right now. We have a huge mental health crisis with our isolated youth, and we're drawing together all the youth agencies so that we can work together for the first time ever in a coordinated manner to get help to our LGBT youth who are struggling, and to get over the insurance questions, and to recognize the extent of the problems, and then to be there for the resources when our students do reach out to us. So the more we can do for them and the more coordination we have in the county, the more students we feel we can reach and grow up with a positive experience, which is what we want for all our students.
That's awesome. And so are you still actively involved, Ron, or are you retired right now? I know you're still working, but do you go into schools at all and still talk with students?
I do. My friends have told me I flunked retirement, the concept. So yes, I still train staff members. I still work and train parents, and then go individually on behalf of a student who needs help at a particular school, where their needs are not being met or not being served. And then as a board member of the Diversity Center, I'm able to help coordinate the many groups at the Diversity Center who work with our youth. We also have a 24-hour 7-day-a-week Discord chat line that is monitored. So kids do have a place to go and talk and to their peers. So it's providing all those services so that our students and youth don't feel isolated and can have positive experiences.
Oh, that's great. And we're gonna have links to all those resources as well, so that people listening can tune into those. You're tuned to listener-supported 90.7 FM KSQD K-Squid. Many voices, one station. And this is State of Mind, being human and living well. We're also live streaming over the web at ksqd.org. I'm your guest host today, Adam Lanfear, and I'm here talking with Safe Schools Director Ron Indra, and activist SoCal High School student Marie Harrison, and activist Scotts Valley High School student Q Licht. We're hearing what two remarkable teens are doing to make a difference at their schools. Stay with us to learn more about LGBTQ+ teens in the pandemic. We'll be right back after this brief message from our underwriter.
KSQD thanks the Queer Youth Task Force of Santa Cruz County for supporting State of Mind. The Queer Youth Task Force provides advocacy, support, and empowerment for LGBTQ+ youth and their allies. More information is available at qytf.org. That's qytf.org. Thank you, Queer Youth Task Force of Santa Cruz County, for supporting community radio. K-Squid, 90.7 FM.
Let's get back to the interview. And so as we start to wind down on State of Mind, I know we like to talk about stigma. And so I'm going to throw this question out there, and anybody can feel free to take it. But let me just ask what impact stigma has had on you. Are there particular things that you feel like are taboo when people discuss with you, or you can't discuss with people? And why coming on the show today is important to you to break stigmas?
Stigma has had a lot of impact in my life. I grew up in a very stigmatized environment. And so there are a lot of stigmas that I have had to overcome in my life, especially around race and, queer youth. I'm still overcoming a lot of my racial and queer stigmas because it's a learning process. It's something you're constantly seeking to improve. And so I think that coming here and speaking about my experience and helping others discover their experience helps me and helps others learn how to interact with their stigma and solve their stigmas.
So, Q, I have a question. You had some ideas about top 3 things someone can do to react if someone comes out to you as queer, transgender, gay, asexual, non-binary, any LGBTQ plus identity. Do you want to share about that?
So for my 3 big things, match their energy, find answers to your questions politely, and you don't have to understand to show respect. So for match their energy, it can be really tricky to start processing someone coming out to you while doing your best to support them. So the best advice I can offer for that in the moment is to match their energy. If they want this to be a serious conversation between the two of you, have a serious conversation with them. If they're really excited and they're like really happy to be coming out to you, be excited for them, be happy with them. For finding answers to your questions, if you have a question, like find an answer to it in a respectful way. So if you have a question to ask a person, always start by saying, can I ask you a question related to being LGBTQ plus? Or can I ask you a personal question about being queer? Because that gives them the opportunity to either verify that this is a safe space for you to ask that question, or the opportunity for them to say, no, I'm not comfortable answering those kinds of questions, or maybe later. But even if someone says that and you still have your question, there's plenty of online resources. So don't give up. If you have a question about the LGBTQ plus community, I can assure you that the answer is somewhere out there online. And finally, you don't have to understand to show respect. So it can be really difficult to wrap your head around concepts like being transgender and what that experience is like. But you don't have to understand what someone is going through in order to show respect by using their new name and pronouns, or using the language that they ask you to. It really means a lot to me when people ask their questions in a polite way and they recognize that they don't need to know exactly what I'm going through to use the right pronouns for me.
That's great. I think that last point is really important about not needing to understand to show respect. So we've mentioned a lot of resources. Hoping maybe we can just succinctly share some of the important resources to us, and remember that they'll be available on the State of Mind website, Case Code website. So do you want to start with this, Ron?
Sure, of course. So one of them I'd recommend is the Diversity Center, which is diversitycenter.org. And that has a calendar of all LGBT events in the county, as well as all our meetup groups for our youth, trans people, seniors, etc. It's a great resource. The next one is Safe Schools Project, safeschools.org. Again, lots of resources, lots of information for schools, parents, and students on LGBT issues. And then the Queer Youth Task Force, QYTF.org. Again, lots of resources, safe, accurate information for youth to go to learn more.
Great, thank you. Marie, do you have any resources you'd like to share?
Yes, I do. My main one is the cryptisinthecloset.com website, which is the website that my group, the Queer and Trans Youth Council, created for closeted youth to find resources safely. And also the Human Rights Campaign glossary of LGBTQ plus terms. It was the first glossary I used to discover, like, to learn what asexuality actually meant. And so it's a good starting place if you're, interested in some base terms and some basic understandings.
Great, thanks. And Q, do you have any?
I'd recommend the Trevor Project. specifically the glossary that they have. I think it's a great place to start learning about LGBTQ plus language and terms, and also their uh, their 101 for learning about what it means to be transgender. Um, I wish that I had encountered that earlier in my journey, because it would have been a really good thing for me to read. And I think it's important for allies to the trans community to read it as well, because it's a really great 101. It covers all the basics. And also, the Purple Sticker Project website is going to be linked below, and that has some other resources sorted by grade level and then for parents and teachers.
Great, thank you. As we're wrapping up, I was just wondering if you guys have any closing comments or anything you'd like to say. I guess since you're talking, Q, I'll throw it to you. Do you have any final advice or anything you'd like to share with us before we part?
Yeah, I guess just the importance of visibility. It was really important for me to be able to learn about what it means to be LGBTQ plus, and to see other people coming out as LGBTQ plus and living their lives, just being people, existing, having a home, a family, a job, um, because representation and that visibility is really important for me, and kind of reminding me that there's a lot of hope for my future, because I don't see a lot of people in the media who have my experiences as a trans person. So it's really important to me. It gives me hope for the future.
I have hope too. Thank you. Marie, do you want to share some final advice?
Um, yeah, I want to tell the closeted, questioning queer youth that they're not alone. Um, Even though it may seem like an uphill battle, you can find a place to belong. And I'm speaking from personal experience. It is possible to find somewhere you belong. Whatever you're around, whatever your identity, you are valid and treasured, and we welcome you with open arms.
And from experience, it does get better. It does. Right. All right. And Ron, do you have any closing statements or advice you'd like to share with us?
Well, it's been a great experience being with everyone today. And I think my recommendation, not obviously coming from a teacher, is education, education, education. Our two students here today are prime examples who informed themselves, educated themselves, not only to help themselves, but all the other people, all the other students that they touch. It's what's going to save us, and we're going to do it.
In Your Voice are short segments where listeners get to add their voice to the discussion. You can either call in and leave a message or record an audio file right on your phone. Either way, tell us about a mental health experience you've had, something that has contributed to your mental health recovery, or just share a resource that has helped you. Submission details can be found on the State of Mind program page at ksqd.org. Upcoming show topics are obsessive compulsive disorder and yoga therapy. If you have an experience with either of these, we want to hear from you, and your voice may just be on one of our future shows. With regard to today's topic of LGBTQ plus teens in the pandemic, we heard from a community member, one of State of Mind's very own, our audio editor, Jeannie Baldzikowski, who back in high school was a student of Mr. Indra's, and she was president of the Rainbow Society at Harbor High in her junior and senior years. Here's Jeannie.
Hi there, my name is Jeannie. I'm a queer Santa Cruz local. I'm also the editor of this show, so I've been looking forward to this one, especially featuring Ron Indra, who was a shining beacon of hope and support and possibility in high school, which was, early high school was one of the more questioning and anxious times for me surrounding my queer identity. Like late junior high and early high school, I think were the hardest for me personally. And by the end of high school, I was hosting the GSA under or with Ron, and it's just awesome to have a show with him. Yeah, he was one of those pairs of arms that rooted me on and supported me and encouraged me to, to keep up with embarking on living my true life and walking my true path. And there are many other arms that I'm thankful for that have done the same and rooted me on, encouraged me, supported me. And if you're thinking about coming out, I would say try to find a pair of arms that you have a good feeling about, like an ally in your circle or another queer person in your circle to kind of toss it around with. For me, it was a friend's mom's friend. She was an outspoken ally, and I thought, I think I can talk to her, and I did, and said, I think I might be gay. And she, of course, rooted me on. And if the first pair of arms that you test out are not completely supportive and encouraging, loving, supporting, there are generations of arms, queer arms and ally arms, holding you up, lifting you up, and rooting for you. And it's only a matter of time, if you don't find them right off the bat, that they will start coming into your life. And it truly does not just get better. It gets awesome, and it gets fun. And the queer community is amazing. And there is nothing better than living your true life and loving your true love. I have a partner now of 4.5 years, and I think it's going to be a lot more at this rate. And I'm so thankful for her, and I can just hope for the same for anyone else.
So hopefully our conversations today have sparked something in you. And thank you to our incredible guests, Marie, Q, and Ron, for coming on and making your voices heard and sharing your stories. And to those of you listening, I encourage you to get involved and speak up. You can research your local Pride event or attend one digitally. Thanks again, Deborah, for providing this space and this platform for all of us to come on and speak on. So happy Pride, y'all.
This is the producer, Deborah Sloss, and I want to say a huge thank you to our guest host today, Adam Lanfear, and to our show guests. And thanks to you for joining us here on State of Mind, Being Human and Living Well. To hear more conversations about mental health and wellness, join us on the first Sunday of every month from 6 to 7 p.m. right here at Casewood. Special thanks to Jeannie Baldzikowski for audio production and to Jennifer Young, who assists with research and outreach. And thanks to acoustic guitarist Adrian Legg for composing, performing, and donating the use of our theme music. You can find all the past episodes of this show on our ksqd.org website by typing State of Mind in the search bar, or subscribe and get them delivered directly to your listening device on either Apple or Google Podcasts, or listen through your home smart speaker by saying, play State of Mind podcast with host Deborah Sloss on TuneIn. If you like this or any previous State of Mind episodes, please help the shows get heard by more listeners by leaving us a rating and review on Apple and Google Podcasts. This is listener-supported community radio, KSQD Santa Cruz. Just remember, 90.7 FM, K-Squid, your ink spot on the dial. Stay with us.